Hi, y'all. Welcome in. Hey, Heidi's. Give me a thumbs up or a yes if you can hear me. Welcome in. Awesome. Thanks, Heidi. Welcome into Art Therapy Thursdays. Welcome. Hey, y'all. I am Vanessa Gale with Collecting Cousins here on Mainly Made and on Instagram. I will just right up front apologize that I have had the crud the last few days, so I know I sound really bad. Borderline hoarse and all those things, but I'm feeling a little better today, so we are jumping in and we have an activity planned for Art Therapy Thursday. Thank you. Welcome in. Hey, how are you, Vintage Danes? So just kind of yeah, it is going around. My husband and I went to a concert last weekend to see Blackberry Smoke over in the Tunica, Mississippi area, and I think I might have caught something over there. So, but we had a great time. All right, so what I have planned for today is something a little bit different from what I've done before. I'm going to be making a magnet with a quilt square. So it's a trend around in our part of the country. If you have an old barn to put hey, thank you for rating Blind Art. I was just watching your UV glow rose was so pretty. I'm so glad Connie got that. That's awesome. Hey, Nicole. So it's a trend in this part of the country to do a quilt square on your barn. And they do workshops and events teaching people how to put those quilt squares on your barn. And they like to choose maybe a family quilt that they have. It's an heirloom quilt, and they do a square from that. So I really like that look. So I went on Pinterest and I found some pumpkins, a quilt square that is a pumpkin. And I have these 6x6 magnet, they're magnet backed squares that I got. I think it was a pack of three of them at Hobby Lobby. And I almost never buy anything over there unless it's on clearance. And I've already sketched this out. And so this is what we're going to do today. And I have another pattern also. If we get finished with this one, we will move on and do the next one. But we're going to do the first one is the pumpkin, and the second one is a cardinal. So I thought we'd get a little pumpkin crafting, looking forward to Halloween. And if we have time, we'll move on to the cardinal, which is more kind of a Christmas thing. So, in order to prepare, thank you, Heidi. In order to prepare for this project today, again, I found an example of what I wanted to use on Pinterest, and then I had to kind of look at it and examine the squares and how many squares there were. And I knew that the magnet that I have was 6 inches by 6 inches. So I took some graph paper here and I drew out a 6x6 little grid. And then I had to figure out the pattern. The pattern was actually a 4x4 pattern. So I have the 4x4 pattern here in the center, which left me with an inch on either side. And so I have an inch wide border all the way around that I've planned to use. And then I have kind of marked off all the squares just to make sure I had an idea of exactly how it was going to be laid out and that I didn't need to make any changes. So I did that on the graph paper is the planning stages. Excuse me. And so this is what we're going to paint. And I've already done some of the prep work. So I marked off my inch by inch grid. I knew that the inch wide grid here at the top was going to need to be divided in half because I was going to have half an inch border here and then another half-inch border here. And I think we're going to paint the outer one. I also prepped the canvas by painting it brown. Didn't mention that. And so I've drawn off my grid and our squares. And so what we are ready to do at this phase in the process is paint our pumpkin. So that's what we are going to get started on. I'm going to let you just take a look at that one more time. There is some prep work involved. And we've painted this with the base coat. Then I have marked off my grid. And so now what we're going to do today is we are going to paint a pumpkin. All right, so I have my craft paints here. I have several shades of orange. The example that I looked at had several different shades of orange, so I'm just going to take some orange paints here. Let me look up, you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to put a little bit of several different shades of orange, and we may use these shades as they are, but we may also mix them. And I've already given these a good shake ahead of time, but nevertheless, we're going to shake them up a little bit. And these are just craft paints and several different brands that you can get from any craft store. If you're like me, you have tubs of these things laying around, and a lot of times they dry up before you ever use them, but we have them. Yeah, I love pumpkin season too. Now, if you are at home and you are hoping to participate along, um, you could do this on a piece of paper or a piece of cardboard or something that you have. You would need a ruler and you would need a pencil. And again, I'm working on a 6x6 grid here today. And I can give you some more measurements if you're wanting to do that. I can go through that with you, that part again. All right, so I'm putting out my yellow and my orange paints. And we're going to be painting this. So again, we have a 6x6 grid, and I've marked off my 1-inch border, and we have a 4x4 pumpkin in the center, and we're going to be painting these sections. If you're just coming in, welcome. So I am looking to choose which brush I want to use. I'm going to lower you guys a little bit more now so you can see. So we have a stem here, and this is going to be brown, and we have these pieces here. These are leaves, and they're going to be green. So what we have to do is fill in these sections here, okay? So I am just going to dip into some paint and start. And I'm going to go with an orange here. Now, my plan in the end is to go back and cover the edges of each of these grid sections with like a black Sharpie just to highlight it and give more definition. I looked at several examples of how that was done. And so that's what we're going to do in the end. Now, as I'm painting, I do not like those two mixed right together very close in color, so I'm going to add a little bit of a pastel-y color, kind of paint in and over on that. We want each one of these little triangles to be a different shade of orange. So, and this may require a couple coats. And I do have some water over here. And I already can tell one other thing I think I'm going to need to do is maybe put out a bit of a brown to maybe mix a couple of these colors a little bit more, just for some varying shades of orange here. So again, this is not a super difficult painting activity once you get the grid laid out. It's just a matter of filling in these little spaces. And I'm using kind of a small brush that has almost a bit of an angle at the end so that I can get down in the little tiny parts of this corner here. I kind of like paint by numbers. Yeah, you're exactly right. And you could go through, and if you were going to do this activity with kids, you could even create a little number chart for them to do that. It might be a good thing to do with some kiddos. Okay, I'm going to rinse that brush off, and while I do that, I'm going to put me a little dab of brown out here, just so I'll have it. I like to do lots of different kinds of art, and I get bored with things after I do them for a while, and I want to change and do something else. And I thought this is something we haven't done before. I do have a Mandala Monday scheduled coming up. I don't remember if it's this coming Monday or the next Monday, but I'll be doing that if you're interested in painting mandalas. So my plan here as I do these orange sections is to just try not to have the same colors touching if I can avoid it. Now, if you have to, that's fine and it'll be okay. But the idea is to try to avoid that if possible. So I'm going to bring this lighter, brighter orangey yellow right over here, and then it'll be touching at the point, but not side by side. So I'm going to go through, and this is a little bit thicker, so this paint is being a little bit more difficult to work with, but it's coming together. Again, I apologize. So many supplies. Exactly. Exactly. I'm always looking for new activities to do with the supplies I currently have. And I came across these squares the other day and I thought, I need to do something with these. What am I going to do? So here we are. I found a way to use them. And again, I love the quilted look and the kind of the country. I was country when country wasn't cool as far as the farmhouse, farmhouse design. Welcome in, Connie. Hey, I noticed that you stepped up to accept a place later in the day. I appreciate that. I saw you live already earlier today, so that's awesome that you'll step in for that. Looking forward to it. I actually bought my masking tape and some school glue and some cotton balls. I'm going to try from your activity I watched you do the other day. I think I'm going to give it a try. So I'm going to mix a little bit of this yellow over here and add in just a little bit of this orange and just see what kind of happens, what kind of shade we might get from that. And actually, if you look at that, if you can see it, it looks about the same color. I'm going to add in a little bit of that. See if we can make it a little bit different, just to change things up. And because it is close to that, I'm going to move right over here. Again, just play with it, mix your colors. And again, I'm going to go over the edges of these grid lines in black. So there's no need to be, you want it to be kind of close to the line, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to go with this darker orange. I'm going to add just a tiny tad of brown just to see if we get a little bit different shade there. Sorry, bumping the camera. Alright, and while I'm doing that, and I've got that color on my brush, I'm going to bump over here and do one here with that color. And I'm going to tap a little bit more, get a little more of that brown in there. That's a nice dark, kind of darker orange. Add a little more of the orange in it. And I'm going to do one of those down here along the bottom. Because if we think about shading and shadows, your darker colors, are going to kind of be in a shadow sort of under the bottom. So I'm going to do a few of this darker one while I have it on my brush. Some of these spots here. And maybe another one right here. Rolled here. So I'm so glad y'all are here. Been thinking about this. Thanks, Red Crawford, for coming in. Yeah, I like different colors, Heidi, when you just have fun and kind of mix it, and you never really know for sure what's going to happen, but you just kind of go with it. And let's see, I have found that this one particular orange that I have is kind of it's sort of see-through. It's not very thick, so I'm kind of mixing it with a little bit to see if I can thicken it, make the color a little more solid. Again, I'm sorry for the sniffles, but it is what it is, right? Alright, so while I have this color on my brush, I'm just going to go ahead and hit several of these, and we'll worry about spreading our colors out a little bit later. And again, we're not having to worry about it being absolutely perfect. We go with a brighter color up here by the top. Again, think about the shading and shadows and try to have some of your brighter colors more prominent at the top and your darker colors a little bit more on the bottom, and then I'll give you a little bit more of illusion of shading and shadows. Now, I have to be careful right here because that is going to not be colored, and I don't want to mess up and color that in. So, just having to think about those kind of things too. All right. do a regular bright orange, and that's about the same color. At this point, I'm not worrying about being terribly neat. Alright, so those of you that are just coming in, we are painting a pumpkin quilt square. I know it doesn't look like much right now, but this is a 6x6 magnet, and we are painting a pumpkin. You'll see the stem here, the body of the pumpkin, and then there's going to be a border around it. So it's going to look like a quilt square. That's a pumpkin pattern. I'm just going to go in and smooth a little bit of that paint out. That paint is a little bit thinner than the others, and I think we're going to maybe need to do another color. The good thing about having the brown in the background is that, that kind of maybe helps that orange a little bit. So I'm just going to go through here and touch up a couple of these that maybe need just a little bit more paint, and then we'll keep going with our other colors. Noticing a few of these are not as dark as I want them to be as far as solid colors. Again, I'm just using acrylic craft paints here. Alright, now throw this in here. It's kind of another go around with some darker orange. Too much paint on that brush. Welcome in, MM. We are making a pumpkin quilt square magnet. Right now we are just painting some of our colors in. Each one of our little quilt square sections, these triangles here, we're doing in shades of orange. And we're going to go back in the end and kind of crisp up these lines a little bit with a black marker or paint over the lines. Alright, so I'm looking for some colors maybe that I haven't used. We're going to take this one and go in this spot so that those are not touching. Down in this corner. And then here, let's go with just a, let's see what happens when we mix this color with a little brown. I don't really like it, so we're going to abandon ship on that color. Leave that off my brush. And we're going to pick up some orange and some of this creamy melon color. Alright, let's pick this section here, this color. And this one, this color. We're getting close on this pumpkin here, y'all. The body part. We'll get into the green and the border. And let's see. Let's do this one here, this brighter color too. Alright. And I think I'm going to go with this yellow down here. And orange here. Just wait for just a moment. If you all haven't already, I would love for you to give me a follow. I have put a few things in my shop as far as earrings and the like that I have out there that I make. So if you want to go in and give that a look, that would be awesome. Alright, Let's see. I don't really like how this one turned out. I'm going to darken that one up a bit. This paint here was a little thick, so I'm just going to touch on that a few spots just to give it a little better coverage to crisp up those lines. Alright, now a few places left, and I really do like how this color here that I mixed with a little bit of the brown and orange turned out. So let's see if I can load some of that on my brush and get this edge over here. Get this piece. Alright, and maybe this one as well. So I have several darker colors in this square right here. So I want to go with a lighter color. And I also noticed I didn't use very many of this yellow, just the yellow alone. So I'm going to throw one of those in there. And while I've got extra paint on my brush, let me just do a second coat on that. Alright. A few little things I want to make a little neater. And a few little things I want to make a bit darker. So I'm just going to take a minute to kind of go back over some of these and then we'll move on to the leaves. So in case you're just coming in and you're not sure what in the world is going on over here on Mainly Made with Vanessa, we are doing Art Therapy Thursdays, and I have decided that we were making a pumpkin quilt square today. I have a 6x6 magnet, square magnet, and I chose a pumpkin quilt pattern, and we are painting our quilt pattern um, that happens to be a pumpkin. And right now we're just filling in these sections, and some of the paints are not super thick, and I'm going in to just kind of touch some of them up. Yeah, I think I want another bright one down here, so I'll get a little of that paint on my brush. And with this one and one other, I think our pumpkin will be complete. Alright, so again, while I've got that color on my brush, I'm just going to touch some of the others that were the same color. One more spot here. I want that to be nice and light because it is at the top of the pumpkin and it might be catching some light there. And I think I'm going to use this yellow color one more time. Alright. Now at the end, once we do a little bit more and this dries a bit, I will come back in here and touch these up a bit more. But for now, we are going to move on to the green. Okay, so I'm sorry I was off camera there. You all may not have been seeing some of that. So this is our pumpkin square. We'll need to touch it up. We're going to go through and we're going to draw over the lines. But now I'm going to put a little bit of green paint out here that we're going to use for our leaf. And we want a couple different versions of green so that we can show different squares, the different shapes, that they stand out, that they're individual pieces. And I'm just putting a little green paint on my plate here. So these sections here at the top, these are the ones that are our leaf. So I'm just going to start. I've got this kind of mossy green color. And we're going to do just this one here with that color. And then I have a lighter shade of green And I'm not even going to clean my brush. I'm just going to dip it in there. We don't mind if the paint mixes just a little bit. It's more of a pastel mint green. Get down into the corners here. All right. And then I kind of like how those colors are looking next to each other, so I'm just going to go with the next one. And so see, because I didn't clean my brush and I mixed that in, we've got almost a different shade there, which is kind of okay. Kind of like it. And then the last one that we have that's going to be green is this piece here, and I'm going to go again with a lighter color. And I just put my hand down in green paint, but it's okay. Just a tad more. All right. So we have our leaf. Now we have a stem. I'm going to rinse my brush for this section. I wanted to get up there in that brown. This is a almost a burgundy colored, deep kind of rich brown. Whoop, I have water dripping off my brush there. We don't want that. Okay. And when I did this square, I don't know if you see the extra little markings, it was divided into even smaller sections just to get this little angle there at the top. So the whole thing was divided into squares, and then the squares are divided into smaller shapes, and sometimes then even smaller shapes. We have our stem. All right, so that's how our pumpkin is looking so far. All right. There are things I like about it, things that I don't like about it. Isn't that how art is? So what I do want to do is to take, I'm going to get a brush that is dry, and I'm going to go in here and pull some of these orange colors and just go over a few of these just to add a little bit more depth. And I'm just going to mix my brush and all the colors. I'm not even cleaning it. Just going to hit it, and it's okay if they mix a little. So getting those regular orange ones first, getting some more of these brown or orange ones, and the yellow for sure. I do want to get the yellow. So those are the ones that are a little too thin. Running a second coat on there, third coat in some cases. That one right there needs a little help. Okay, and the other, maybe some of this lighter color here. These are a little thin as well. All right. I feel better about that now. Not perfect, but better. Better. Okay. So the other thing I want to do, I think I'm going to do a black border, and then maybe we'll see how it looks after we do the black border around. Maybe even like a white or a multicolor. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm going to get my black paint now. Actually, I don't have any black out here. Do I not have black? All right. We will not do black. What about green? I like this green. Let's try this green. Put some more of this darker green out and see how this border looks if we do it with the green. There we go. That's better. I'm going to use a bigger brush for this just so I can cover more space. So this is, it's more of a rectangular shaped brush, and it's much wider than what I was using, just to cover more faster. And it's about the width of what I'm painting here. So if I can just use a steady hand and make sure the brush is loaded, then I don't have to worry too much about the line being perfect. The key is being steady and consistent with the pressure. And we will go back in just a moment and double check the edges. But let's just get this color down and see if we're going to like it. Again, you do not have to have magnet pages like this to, or magnets, canvas magnets like this to do this. You can do this with any square piece of paper, but you do need a perfect square, and measuring is required. If you don't like to measure and use a ruler, this may not be the activity for you, but it is really neat when you start studying different quilt patterns and realize how they put them together with all the half shapes and quarter shapes and different things. It's kind of interesting. But I would recommend that if you're going to do it, start with an easier pattern, one that is not super intricate, that's got larger shapes that are very similar, so that it's not terribly complicated when you draw out your grid the first time. And there are some printables available online if you are interested and want to do it that way. All right. So almost done here with this border. I'm always amazed if you ever watch people do hand lettering and how they get all their letters so, especially like professionals for signs, and I'm fascinated by watching those folks do that. All right, so we have our green border. I'm going to take you up just a little bit here. The printables. Yeah. Well, it's again, you find a quilt pattern that you like and give it a try, right? So the next decision is, do we leave this background brown or do we paint it another color? I think it's a little dark, and I do need to cover up the grid lines that I made. So I'm considering painting it like not necessarily white, but maybe a cream color. So I'm moving over here to my tub o' paints, and I have got, this is a color that is called buttercream. And so it's kind of a white, but it's more of a creamy white. So let me pull my plate off camera here, put a little on there, and we are going to paint this background. I think the brown was good for being the background of the orange colors, but I don't really love it for the complete background. So maybe back here. Let me hydrate for a second. All right, so now I can paint everything around here. And again, I'm using a squared tip brush. This is a different one from what I just used. But when I'm doing angles and lines, I like an angular brush. And I know before I start this that most likely I'm going to have to do a couple coats. No, excuse me. So sorry. All right, so let's just jump in here. And I'm going to try to go slow along this line again to keep the lines straight. And when you're doing something like this, you want to be sure you have paint on your brush because you're kind of pulling that paint. And if you have enough loaded on the brush, and when you start to see that it is running dry, I load a little bit more, and then I pull down here, and then I work my way up to that line with the paint on it so that I can be right close. So I'm taking my time here right along this edge, and then we'll go in and we'll fill in the other sections. Again, I just want the right amount of paint on my brush so that I can just pull it. Try to get it straight. You could tape it off if you are not confident, or you use a straight edge to block some of it. And again, right here, get a little paint on this brush because this is an angle. Just come at it like that. Now this section here, you've got to go right in along this. So I'm going to use this brush and pull it this way like that. And then here, so the more you use brushes, the more confident you get, and the more you figure out what works in certain spaces, doing certain things. And what works for me may work for you, and it may not. Yeah, I think quilters would like something like this. Absolutely. Lupe, I am hoping that you do not blow your house up. You get that kiln going. Gosh. But I think it's awesome, and I can't wait to see what you do. And it's a microwave kiln, from what I understand what you were saying a little while ago. That's really cool. Heidi, Lupe, she's got a kiln that she's not used yet. She was saying, or when she was doing her session, or her live a few minutes ago, that she is going to be using the kiln in the microwave, I think. And it's going to be the first time she used it on her own. And she was hoping she didn't blow her house up. Joking mostly. I think. Oh goodness, those things are scary. I am way over here off, and I'm so sorry. I'm not on camera. I don't think. Now got busy talking about kilns and lost my. All right, so I'm going over a little of this edge. I think my brain is shutting down. Or maybe I'm trying to talk and paint at the same time. It's hard to do, like walking and chewing gum. All right, let me get the right angle here for this. A little more paint on this brush. Go back here and get this right up next to here. And then here, we'll get this. Alright, so now I'm just going to spread some of that paint so it's not all globbed up in one area with this last little section. Almost done. All right. Okay. So now we have an idea of how it's going to look. Now I will go back and paint this buttery color again. And then I will go in and take a Sharpie, most likely. I might use paint, but Sharpies are a little more steady, and a ruler, and mark off all these squares or triangles so you'll have a boldness to the pattern that you'll see a little bit better. So this is our pumpkin. And again, this is on a magnet. And I'll post some pictures of it when it's finished. And then once I get everything done, I'll sign it. But I just think it's a neat little fall activity. And we still have 20 minutes. So we have time to start another one if we want to go through the process of the gridding. So let me put this one up here, let it dry. I'll do another coating of the buttery white and the black. And we will look at the other drawing that I sketched out. And this one is a cardinal. So we will most likely not have time to finish this one, but I can walk you through the process of how to set this up if you want to do one. All right, so again, I use graph paper and I look at the pattern that I've picked out, and sometimes you can find where the pattern's broken down for you, and sometimes it's not really broken down for you at all, and you have to just kind of figure it out. And you can make up your own the more you do this. So I know that my square is a 6x6. This drawing is a little bit bigger than what my actual square is, but it helps me to see what I'm doing. So this particular pattern has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares as a part of the pattern. The one we just did, that was a 4 square pattern. This has 5. But I know my block is 6x6, so I have 1/2 inch border to take up that extra inch. So where if every square is an inch, then I know there are 6 across. So I have a half here and a half here for my border, a half here, a half here for my border. Excuse me. And so then I just have to grid off by inches. So to prep this, I'm going to use a pencil and a ruler. And don't be afraid to use a ruler. And some rulers are different. Now, we're going to go to elementary class here for just a second because we forget these things. This particular ruler has a space here before the first mark. So I'm not going to start at the edge measuring. I'm going to start at the first mark. Some rulers, the edge is the first mark. So you just have to look at yours and see what it's all about and figure it out. And so you're going to lay that right there. I'm going to lower you just a little so you can kind of see a little better what I'm doing. It is tricky, and I taught elementary for a while, and I remember being in elementary, and I remember being confused a lot. Teaching and as a student, both. So, so we've got our 6 inches. I'm going to make a mark just right at each inch mark on this side, and then I'm going to do the opposite side. And again, I'm starting at the beginning there. And this is slightly off. It's not exactly 6. So I'm kind of compensating on both sides so that it's enough. It's fine. Everything's fine. It'll be fine. All right. So now I have those marks, and I'm going to just draw from one side to the other lightly. And this is my grid for the inches. And it never feels like it's lining up right. But magically, it usually works. All right. Now, same thing for this other section, the other side here. I'm going to measure a little mark for each inch. Other side, turn it over, a little mark for each inch. and connect them from one side to the other, and then we will have our grid. Yeah, it's just seeing how other people do things sometimes will give you new ideas, or you go, wait, I've been doing that the hard way all these years. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have our 6x6 grid. Now, we already said that we needed a 1/2 inch border around this. And so as I'm sitting here thinking, I'm thinking, I think I did this wrong. And you know, I absolutely did. I have messed this up royally. I have royally messed this up. But that's okay because we have an eraser. And so what we're going to do, now let me explain. Why did I mess it up? Why did Vanessa mess it up? Well, what Vanessa should have done was measure out her 1/2 inch and their 1/2 inch all the way around, and then divided that space in the center into our 5 sections that we need for this one. So I tried to do it like I did the last one, but leaving it like this, see, if I do a 1/2 inch here and a 1/2 inch here, then these are not right. So let's fix it. And this is why we use pencil. It's going to be kind of messy, but it's okay. We're going to paint over it anyway. It will be fine. So here we go. Let's try again. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to measure 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch right here. And I'm going to make that one kind of bold because I need to be sure I'm not using the wrong one. And 1/2 inch. All right, now I'm going to connect these. All right. Now, didn't work. Try again. All right, and I'm making it nice and dark. All right, so now we're going to measure 1/2 inch. I knew when I was talking about that a minute ago. Now you have to do this one different. And I went right along. We're going to blame it on the cold meds. It's not me, it's the medication. Great excuse. All right, now we're going to mark 1/2 inch here. We've already got 1/2 inch there. 1/2 inch here. We've got that marked already. Let's see, we need this one. 1/2 inch right there. All right. Okay, now we're going to have it right. We are going to have it right. Eventually, we will have it right. Okay, so now let me explain why I messed up. So this is a 6x6 inch square. We need a 1/2 inch border all the way around so that we have the remaining 5 inches inside of this. So what I did was I just did 6x6x6. So that meant that these were all not going to be lined up correctly. So now that we know we have to have 5 of these, we know that we've got 5 inches. And so now we need to mark off our squares based on this. So here, 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 and here. And let me go around this way. And again, we're measuring inside of the border this time, not the whole thing. And so when I draw these lines, now wait a minute. Wait one moment. Something is amiss. Well, no, I think it's going to be right. It just didn't look right. Okay. Now, we have all these crazy lines, right? So you can see these lines are in a different place, and now I have all those others that are in the background that would have been wrong, and now we've got them right, and I'm just darkening these up because they weren't as dark as what I need them to be. Okay. Now, so you can see these are the correct lines. Those were the incorrect lines because I didn't account for my border. So we've got the 1-inch, half-inch border. Now we have our grid sections here. And now what we need to do is do our grid sections this way, measuring inside the border. So I'm going to mark these quickly here. We're down to about 10 minutes. Maybe we will get most of this gridded off and at least the design marked before we have to go. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. All right, now let's connect these lines. No one ever said that it was easy. No, this is when you to get these quilt squares and to get them done right, it takes a little bit of patience and a little bit of thinking. But once you get the thinking and the marking done, then the fun part happens. All right. So again, you see we've got the darker lines. This is the correct lines, the ones in the background. When I didn't take into account for the border, that's where we are. All right. So here's my pattern. I'm going to raise you up a bit so maybe you can see a little bit of both. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm not doing anything on my first square, and this square is going to need to be divided in half long ways because that's the top of the bird's head. And then you just go through your pattern there and see what you need to mark and how you need to mark it. This piece goes here and there's nothing there. This piece is divided in half this way. So I'm going to just divide that right like this. This one is divided in half this way, and so on until you get each one of your squares. You can go through and you can divide them and just make grid lines and divide them all out, but you may not. It may not be necessary. So that is what we're going for. We're going for the cardinal, and so I'm just going to keep looking. I wish you could see both of these, but you can't see both of them. So I'm going to let you look at what I'm doing. All right. This one, we're going to go ahead and divide as well. Now, when you're dividing them, you're just going point to point. So point to point here. And I'm going to divide this one into 2 parts because I need the smaller triangle for it. And this one needs to be divided the same way. So here and here. And then this one, the face of this one, it's kind of like following a map or something. You just have to use your brain and see where it goes. And we're going to go all the way down because this is going all the way down. So we divided all those at the same time. All of this is going to be red for the bird. Then we're going to go right here, get this way. All right, so we have the bird's body is going to be all of this, and then we have a couple of pieces that would be green for the leaves. And we're going to mark these. And here. And this one also. And I believe this one is green as well. And then these up here, we've got these 2 marked, so this is the last one. All right. So we have green, 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 and green. And then this one is red. And these are red, 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 red. Red goes all the way down here. Red. And we didn't divide this one. This one needs to be divided as well. And red. And then up here, I think this was black. Both of those were black, I believe. So now I know what we need to paint. And if we had time, we would go on in and paint, but we don't. But at least you have an opportunity to see how the gridding works. And I'll get this one done and we'll put some pictures up later. So that's what we did. And that will be what our cardinal will look like. That's what we were working on. Now let's go back and take a look at our pumpkin. So we started off with, this was our grid for our pumpkin that we did that I drew out. I had everything pre-marked. So we painted our magnet square, 6x6, nice large magnet. And I'm going to go back in and paint the surrounding area in the off-white again. And then I'm also going to use a marker to draw black around the edges of all the borders just to make everything pop. And then I'll sign it and it will be finished. So we made quilt, square, pumpkin magnet, started the cardinal for Christmas magnet, and it will be finished later. And once I get this done, I'll put it at my shop. So, but I thank everybody for participating. Yeah, I'll be sure to put it up. It's something different, right? Again, I like to change it up. And can I answer any questions for anybody? I do have some items in my buy it nows. If you have a chance to go look, I'm on Niknax and Mainly Made. I will be doing Mandala Monday. I believe it's this Monday. It may be the following Monday, but it's scheduled. So take a look at that if you're interested in mandala painting. And give everybody else a follow. I want to remind you, there are a lot of live sales here on Mainly Made and on Niknax, but we also have buy it nows. If you haven't been checking to see what you can find by searching buy it nows, you might want to look at that. Also, a lot of fun stuff. And any questions? No? Okay. We have about 3 minutes. How about we lay down some red paint? We'll just start painting our little cardinal. Why not, right? 2 minutes and counting. I said we will. It doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of paint in this container. Maybe we won't. But we will. All right. So again, just acrylic paints. And you're just going to paint in these squares that we've marked that they need to be red. Do a couple coats. Try to stay close to the lines. Using angled brushes, help that, squared off brushes. And just get that paint there and do a couple coats so you cover up all your letters and your gridding. It'll let you see the outline of this cardinal here. And you can see the shape. Again, this part here will be black for its beak. So there you go. you kind of can see the bird, right? Makes it make a little bit more sense to see the color there. Then your brain can go, oh yeah, it is a bird. All right, so thank y'all for coming in. I appreciate you being here and indulging me and letting me be my quirky self with you guys. And so we're going to go on over now to Vintage Scavenger. And thanks for participating today and enjoy the rest of the day.